Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased to welcome you all here to the Center for Law, Justice, and Culture at Ohio University's 2021 Summer Law and Trial Institute. My name is Larry Hayman. I'm the Program Director of the Summer Law and Trial Institute. This afternoon's mock criminal trials will represent the hard work and dedication of the 18 high school students chosen from a very competitive applicant pool to spend part of their summer studying law and justice here at Ohio University. The students have been divided into 4 teams, 2 prosecution teams and 2 defense teams. You're about to observe 2 of the teams try their cases before Athens County Court of Common Pleas Judge George McCarthy. At the conclusion of the case, the matter will be submitted to our jury for virtual deliberation while Judge McCarthy delivers comments to the participants. I want to give a special thanks to the Athens County Bar Association and generous contributions from Ohio University alumni to make this program free for selected participants, as well as the many Ohio University alumni, students, and friends who make this program possible. With that, I will turn the program over to Judge McCarthy.
Thanks, Larry. Welcome, everybody. This is a little bit unusual because I cannot see any of you. So I would anticipate seeing counsel for each side if you can activate your cameras. Plus, when we get started, I'll expect to see the witnesses if we can accomplish that. But welcome to Athens Common Pleas Court. I'm Judge McCarthy. I've been doing a few of these over the years, so I look forward to today's mock trial event. I think you'll find it rewarding. I know everybody's worked very hard on putting it together. So without any further ado, why don't we get started? I'm going to treat you just like a real trial. So can I get counsel to introduce each other? First from the plaintiff side.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. May I make appearances before the court?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Max Cito, and alongside my co-counsel, Ms. Savannah.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
We are speaking on behalf of the state of New Columbia. In this trial, we will be calling 3 witnesses to the stand: Pat Smith.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Dr. Alex Richards.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
And finally, Tyler Johnson.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
May I proceed?
No, let's take a moment right now. I'm going to have the witnesses, all 3 of them, raise your right hands. Pat Smith, Dr. Richards, and Tyler Johnson. Raise your right hand. I'm going to, for the sake of brevity and time, I'm going to swear you all in at the same time. Do you all swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. First, before you proceed, Mr. Cito, is I need to hear from the defense first. Who is representing the defendant?
Good evening, Your Honor. Permission to make appearances to the court?
Yes, please.
My name is Cheyenne Sims, and along with my co-counsel, Isabella Grijalva.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Go ahead.
Are here representing Chris Archer on behalf of the defense. Your Honor, today we'll be presenting 3 witnesses. The first witness will present is Dean Jesse Thomas, portrayed by Layla Munanme. And then we have Dr. Jordan Mitchell, who is portrayed by Madison Scott.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
And finally, we present you with Chris Archer, who is played by Aiden Fox.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. If do all 3 of you have cameras? Here's Mr. Archer. I'm going to or opening motions to be made by either side?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Cito?
I would like to ask that we draw the court's attention to Rule 615 and ask that all witnesses be constructively sequestered.
Any objection, Miss? Is it Sims? What's your last name, ma'am?
It's Miss Sims.
S-I-M, spell it for me.
SIMS.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Very well, the motion's granted.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would like to ask the court to constructively swear in all witnesses.
Yep, I've just done that.
Sorry, thank you, Your Honor. And then finally, we would also like to ask to bring the court's attention to the case law contained in the case law packet regarding this particular case and the rules of evidence to be used in this trial.
So noted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And if nothing else, Mr. Cito, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honors, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. This case is a classic example of jealousy and selfish behavior. The defendant decided if he couldn't have Milan Jackson, nobody could. On the night of November 22nd, 1997, 18-year-old Milan Jackson, an ambitious student attending Columbia University, died as a result of a 26-foot fall from the clock tower located in the Student Center of Columbus University. Prior to her untimely death, Miss Jackson had been diligently trying to get into the renowned fraternity Phi Gamma with her best friend, Pat Smith. To be accepted into Gamma, one must complete various pledging activities. These activities vary depending on the fraternity, but are intended to be harmless challenges if the rules of the university are properly followed. These rules are even enforced by the dean, who takes care to remind the fraternities and sororities of these stipulations. Unfortunately, Phi Gamma has an extended history of breaking these rules, leading to numerous accounts of injury and death related to their pledging activities. These activities would be considered criminal hazing, which is also one of the charges placed on the defendant. This history of dangerous initiations was only furthered on the final night of pledging activities in 1997, which is allegedly nicknamed Hell Night. On the night of that day, many students witnessed Milan Jackson fall to her death when defendant Chris Archer pushed her from the clock tower after telling her to hang the Gamma flag from said clock tower as her final pledging activity. The organizer of these pledging activities, was the aforementioned Chris Archer, who was also president of the Gamma fraternity. With the power the defendant had over Miss Jackson, he decided that if he couldn't have Miss Jackson, he would make it so nobody could. The state of New Columbia has charged the defendant with Milan Jackson's murder and the criminal hazing preceding it. The defendant has been charged under two laws: first-degree murder, which prohibits the deliberate and premeditated murder of another human being, and anti-hazing, which prohibits the activities related to an initiation to a fraternity that could result in serious physical injury or even death. The evidence presented in this case will not only illustrate the events that led up to Miss Jackson's death, but also the defendant's direct involvement in these events. To show that the defendant is guilty of his actions, the following must be proven. The defendant participated in the deliberate and premeditated unlawful killing of a human being, and that the defendant was a fraternity member who caused serious injury or death due to an act or direct influence during the initiation process. For my case, 3 witnesses will be called to the stand to offer their testimonies: Pat Smith, former best friend of Miss Jackson; Dr. Alex Richards, a psychiatrist at Columbus University who counseled Miss Jackson before her death; and Tyler Johnson, vice president of Phi Gamma and a friend of Miss Jackson and the defendant. Miss Smith will testify that she witnessed the physically endangering pledging activities that she and Miss Jackson participated in. Dr. Richards will be able to recount how the defendant and the members of Phi Gamma treated Miss Jackson and how they affected her mental state in the weeks prior to her death. Mr. Johnson will explain the motive behind the defendant's actions and what he saw at the top of the clock tower the night of her death. This is a criminal case, and we, the prosecution, have the burden of proof. We must prove the case beyond reasonable doubt that defendant Chris Archer is guilty of his crimes. The laws of first-degree murder and anti-hazing exist to minimize the risk of physical harm and death. The defendant broke these laws, and as a result, Milan Jackson is dead. He made the unjustifiable decision that if he couldn't have her, nobody could. At the conclusion of this trial, in evaluating the evidence presented in this case, my co-attorney, Ms. Savannah, and I ask that you return a guilty verdict in favor of the state to achieve justice and to allow Milan Jackson to rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cito. Does defense have an opening?
Yes, Your Honor. But before I proceed, I would like to bring up some of the defense's pretrial motions.
That's fine. What do you have?
Okay, the defense would like to draw your attention to the aspects of Richards v. New Columbia 1995, and if my co-counsel would share that on the screen. Yes, Your Honor, the relevance of this case is that it's similar to ours with the charge of murder and some of the aspects. So this case law just states that the effects of peer pressure are not outweighed by the pressure of alcohol, and that even if the defense had been drinking, that they themselves need, if they're in a state of decent awareness, then it is no longer murder.
So noted, but what's your motion, ma'am?
Our motion is just to have this noted during the trial today. And
Very
then
well.
And then we would also like to bring attention to Rule 803. For it's a medical exception. So today the relevance of this is that we have Dr. Alex Richards, who is the psychologist of Milan Jackson. And Milan Jackson confided in Dr. Alex Richards, who's a medical professional, in order for Dr. Alex Richards to make their medical diagnosis. And we ask that any conversation between Milan Jackson and Dr. Alex Richards be not objectable because of this exception to hearsay.
Very well. Is there any response, Mr. Cito?
No objection, Your Honor.
Very well. It'll be. Anything else, ma'am?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. Do you have an opening statement you'd like to make? You or your co-counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, please proceed.
Your Honor, opposing counsel and members of the jury, may it please the court. Jurors, today you'll hear a case about a young girl who was suffering through many demons that sadly led to her own demise. Members of the jury, Milan Jackson on the outside was a beautiful, smart girl. However, on the inside, Milan was suffering mentally. In an attempt to cope, she turned to drugs and alcohol. At a young age and during high school, Milan was ridiculed heavily by her classmates. To try and eliminate ever being bullied again, she changed herself completely to not only please her bullies, but everyone around her. She then, at the age of 12, witnessed her favorite aunt, Tanya Maddox, dying by suicide right before her eyes. Even when she was pushing herself the most, her parents were never satisfied with her performance, leading her to develop a perfectionist personality disorder that made her want to impress everyone around her. She confided all this information to Dr. Alex Richards, Columbus University psychologist. Milan Jackson was meeting with Dr. Richards before she even pled to Phi Gamma. When Milan decided to pledge to Phi Gamma in 1997, she wanted nothing more than to be accepted into the frat so she can flourish just as her aunt did. But in order to do this, she needed to impress everyone who was a part of the Gamma fraternity. Columbus University is known for its precautions and great monitoring of their fraternities and sororities. Dean Jesse Thomas, the dean of Columbus University since 1987, does this by enforcing strict campus rules about hazing and reminding leaders of sororities and fraternities about the federal and school laws and what disciplinary actions would be taken if they engage in hazing. Because of Columbus University's record of having extremely low rates of reported incidents of hazings in the past years, they've been named the best place to pledge a fraternity or sorority in not one national magazine, but two. Phi Gamma is a fraternity known for its members being very well-rounded that show exceptional behavior. Phi Gamma has not had a report of hazing in 5+ years, a record that no fraternity or sorority has beat. As a fraternity, they've organized a campus-wide meeting denouncing hazing and have organized numerous anti-hazing rallies, most of these rallies being held by Chris Archer. Chris Archer is the president of Phi Gamma. He's a hardworking student who advocates for fraternities and sororities to refrain from any and all hazings. He met the late Milan Jackson during Rush Week in 1997. Before she pledged, she was already becoming obsessed with the idea of being a part of the fraternity. November 22nd, 1997 was the final day of pledging week. That day, Milan confided in Chris Archer that she believed everyone hated her. In Milan's mind that was clouded by her personality disorder, she thought she had to go above and beyond for her pledging activity to impress everyone once and for all. Chris Archer simply wanted her to hang the Gamma flag on a fraternity dorm. Instead, Milan took it upon herself to go one step above. Chris raced after her while she yelled that she was going to show how great she was to everyone. Chris Archer begged for Milan to stop, but it didn't matter because Milan Jackson had already made her mind up. Members of the jury, the prosecution will have to prove to you every element of first-degree murder beyond a reasonable doubt. In order for you to find Chris Archer liable for so, these elements are 1. Chris Archer deliberately killed Milan Jackson. 2. Chris Archer planned the death of Milan Jackson. And 3, that Chris Archer intended to kill Milan Jackson. The prosecution will also have to prove to you, in order to find Chris Archer guilty of being in violation of anti-hazing statutes, that his conduct during the initiation process directly influenced the death of Milan Jackson. The prosecution will fail to meet each of these elements for both charges. The prosecution will fail to meet each of these elements for both charges. The defense only has to shed light on any reasonable doubt for either of these charges in order for you to find Chris Archer not guilty. Milan Jackson was fighting with her own demons. Her obsession to flourish just as her aunt had, a perfectionist personality disorder, self-esteem issues, all these demons played a part in Milan's demise, none of them having to do with anything with Chris Archer. Members of the jury, I ask that you look at the known facts of the case instead of the presumption and allegations. At the conclusion of this trial, my co-counsel, Bella Grihava, and I respectfully request that you find Chris Archer not guilty of murder in the first degree, nor has he ever been in violation of the anti-hazing statutes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Cito, is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. You may call your first witness.
May I call Pat Smith to the stand, Your Honor?
Yep. Pat Smith, you can turn your camera on, please.
Please state your name for the court.
Pat Smith.
Can you give us a brief history of your relationship with Milan Jackson?
Yeah, so we first met in 3rd grade, and we were both more so the outcasts of the school, so we naturally became good friends and started hanging out a lot. And our friendship led us both to Columbus University, and we pledged to the same fraternity.
And how would you describe Miss Jackson?
Well, she used to be more shy, but then she gained confidence going into high school, along with some popularity. But despite all this, she still remained good friends with me, and we were both very academically involved. And like I said, we chose to go to the same college, and she always seemed to keep a smile on everybody's face.
And when you and Miss Jackson attended Columbus University together, what fraternities did you both pursue?
We both chose to pledge to Phi Gamma.
And based on what you observed, how was Miss Jackson's behavior around the Phi Gamma members?
Well, she wanted to be accepted into it, as did I. And we would both pretty much do anything to cross over the line, which is how you get accepted into the fraternity.
And when you two were trying to get into Phi Gamma, what kind of pledging activities did the members of Phi Gamma make you do?
They made us do all sorts of horrible things like scrub the toilets with our toothbrushes and eat dirt and just drink a lot of alcohol.
And how did the upperclassmen of the Gamma members treat you?
They didn't treat us very well at all. They acted like they didn't like us and just in a standoffish type of manner.
What events occurred related to the pledging activities on November 17th?
Well, we were forced to strip down to our underwear while the male upperclassmen Gammas went around and hit us with wooden paddles, and they didn't think about what they were doing to us, and then they made us go outside like that.
And how did you feel about these pledging activities?
Well, everyone was crying, and I was so humiliated, and I began to have an asthma attack, and I begged to let me go and get my inhaler from my dorm, but they wouldn't let me, and the next thing I know, I was waking.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Mr. Cito? Response, if any?
Sorry, one second. This is not hearsay because it is offered the statement is offered to show the effect on the listener.
It'll be sustained. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. What did you tell Dean Jesse Thomas in relation to the events that occurred on November 17th?
Well, I tried to tell the dean what actually happened.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
As Mr. Cito?
This is not hearsay because the statement shows the truth of the matter asserted.
Yeah, the motion will be, the objection's overruled. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you like me to repeat the question?
If the witness needs it, yes. Go ahead and repeat it.
What did you tell Dean Jesse Thomas in relation to the events that occurred on November 17th?
Well, I tried to tell her the actual events of what happened, but she didn't believe me and just dismissed me and acted like I was overreacting.
And then what did you tell the police in relation to the events that occurred on November 17th?
Well, when the police questioned me, I lied because I was afraid that the Gammas would hurt me in some sort of way if I told anyone.
And what did the members of Gamma say to you when they visited you in the hospital?
Well, they...
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Mr. Cito?
This statement is not hearsay because the statement asserts the truth of the shows the truth of the matter asserted.
The court's going to sustain the objection. Please continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. What happened in relation to the Gammas after the events of November 17th?
Well, since I didn't tell the police what they had told me or done to me, they allowed me to return as a pledge.
And what happened on the night of November 22nd before Miss Jackson's death?
Well, there was a big pledge party, and all of us were there in order to complete our final task, and we were pressured to do a lot of drinking. I know Milan and I both drank about like 3 shots of tequila, but we never really got drunk, and then we were blindfolded to do our final task.
Based on your observations, how does Miss Jackson usually act when she is drunk?
She doesn't seem to be able to walk very well and is confused and kind of blacks out and her eyes get glossy, but none of this happened that night.
And finally, what did you see in the moments recently prior to Miss Jackson's death?
Well, about 5 minutes after they took her, I heard screaming and yelling, and so then I went outside and I saw Chris at the top of the clock tower with Milan, and he had a hand on her shoulder and pushed her off, and I watched as my best friend fell from the clock tower and hit the ground in front of me, dead.
Thank you, Pat Smith. No further questions, Your Honor.
Very well. For the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Good afternoon. My name is Cheyenne Sims, and today I'll be asking you a few questions on behalf of the defense. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes.
I also understand that this trial can be very difficult for you, so if in any moment you ever need some time, please let me know. Milan was heavily bullied in high school, correct?
Yes.
And in high school, you realized that you and Milan were both bullied, so you became friends?
We became friends in 3rd grade when we were both bullied.
Mm-hmm. Then you witnessed Milan starting to change her appearance.
Yes.
Then she changed her hair.
Yes.
She also changed her entire wardrobe to fit what everyone else was wearing.
Yes.
And she lost weight rapidly too, is an observation that you saw. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. She kept changing herself in hopes to please everyone around her. Yes.
Yeah.
Moving on. Not one, but both your parents were gammas.
Yeah.
On top of that, you, Pat Smith, have amazing grades.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, on the grounds of relevancy.
Why is that relevant, ma'am?
Your Honor, this is just laying a couple bits of foundation for the questions that I will ask. The relevance of these questions will come up soon.
All right, I'll take it under advisement. You may proceed.
You were beyond excited and looking forward to be a part of the Phi Gamma fraternity, yes?
Yes, we both were.
Yet, despite your hard work, you weren't accepted into the fraternity.
No.
And you believe that you weren't allowed in because of Chris Archer.
Yeah, I feel like he had some sort of thing against me and Milan.
So that's a yes?
Yes.
And you believe that, and now you're testifying against him?
Yes.
You allege that the Gammas made you eat dirt.
Yes.
They made you drink large quantities of alcohol.
Yes.
And they made you clean toilets with your toothbrush, yes?
Yes.
Yet, with all these bad incidences you're alleging, you still stayed in the fraternity.
Yes, my parents were both very proud of the fraternity, and I just wanted to do something to make them proud as well.
Okay. You told Dean Thomas that you had an asthma attack, yes?
Yes.
And Dean Thomas made sure to take the incident serious and got the police involved.
Objection, Your Honor, on the grounds of a compound question.
The court will grant that. Can you just break it down for us, please?
Yes. Dean Thomas made sure to get the police involved, yes?
Yes.
So he handled this matter very seriously.
Not when I had talked to him, he didn't.
But he got the police involved?
Yes, without my knowledge.
Yet, when the investigation started, the police came to interview you, right?
Yes.
And you told the police that you were playing around and you forgot your medicine, yes?
Yes.
Just to make sure it's clear to the jurors, you told two completely different stories to two different people, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. You testified that you've seen Milan drunk before.
Yes.
And that Milan climbed up on the tower, you knew that she wasn't drunk.
Correct.
Her speech was clear.
Yes.
And she was very much aware of her surroundings.
Yes.
Moving on, it was around 1 a.m. in November when Milan climbed the tower herself, yes?
Yes.
So it was dark.
There were lights on in and outside the buildings.
But it was still dark.
Yes.
And Milan Jackson and Chris Archer were on a tower 26 feet above you, yes?
Yes, but like I said, there were lights around the building.
But your vision was hindered by both of these factors.
Slightly.
In your sworn affidavit, you state, and I quote, "Even though I have spoken with Jordan Mitchell, I have not received any money for the interviews I have given her." Is this correct?
Yes.
And you're aware that you're under oath today?
Yes.
And is it true that you had an interview with Dr. Jordan Mitchell for her new book?
Yes.
And for your interview, you were paid $1,000 for the information you gave her?
If that's what it says.
Yes, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect, Mr. Sato?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for testifying. You're excused. Good job. Who's your next witness, Mr. Sato?
Oh, sorry. Lena is our next attorney.
Oh,
Hi, Your Honor. May I call Dr. Alex Richards to testify?
yes, Dr. Richards, please join us.
Dr. Richards, what is your current occupation?
I am a registered psychiatrist. I currently work at Columbus University, where many college students come to me for help and advice.
What are your credentials?
I received a master's degree in psychology and a PhD in young adult psychology from Northwest University, and also a medical degree from Gladden University.
What knowledge do you have about Greek organizations?
I am familiar with the initiation process of Greek organizations because I myself pledged Phi Gamma when I was at Columbus University. I know that their pledging activities can sometimes be cruel and even, in certain rare cases, life-threatening.
What do you know about the history of the Gammas from personal experience?
As I mentioned, I myself pledged Gamma, but never crossed, due to the cruel and sometimes even violent nature of the pledging activities. As a result of my many professional interactions with students, it has come to my attention that these activities have not only continued, but even increased in their vicious nature.
Over the course of your professional interactions with Dean Thomas, what was the nature of your conversation relating to the pledging activities of the Gammas?
I had several conversations with Dean Thomas, and I stressed with her that the pledging activities can be violent and sometimes even cruel for the pledges. However, Dean Thomas always minimized and downplayed my concerns.
What was your relationship with Milan Jackson?
Milan was one of my clients. I first met her 1 week after campus orientation before she rushed Gamma.
In your first professional interaction with Milan, what, if anything, struck you about her personality?
Milan seemed to be a very sweet girl, very desirous of acceptance.
Over the course of your professional interactions with Milan, what did you discover concerning her family history?
Yes, well, I learned that Milan had an aunt named Tanya Maddox, who unfortunately had committed suicide a few years after she graduated from Columbus University. I also learned that this aunt was a real role model who Milan looked up to. Apparently, Milan witnessed her aunt's violent suicide, and in my professional opinion, Milan's fear of heights that she revealed to me stems from this violent.
Objection, Your Honor.
Grounds?
The grounds of out of scope for the witness.
We've identified our witness as an expert witness. She has the credentials, she has the education, the experience. Yes, that's all.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Sure.
They may have established all these credentials, but they haven't admitted Dr. Alex Richards as an expert in any field of study.
Well, that's true. So as far as the objection goes, it'll be sustained for the time being. I think you need to admit her, Ms. Ling, as an expert witness and have her qualified by the court.
Well, may I do so now, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
This witness, again, has a degree in young adult psychology. She's earned a master's degree in psychology. Actually, I'm sorry, a PhD in young adult psychology. And she also has a medical degree, establishing her experience here in this field.
Ms. Sims, any objection?
I just want to be clear that the witness's expertise is in young adult psychology, and that's it.
Yes, young adult psychology, and she has a degree in psychology and a medical degree.
So is her only may I respond, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
So opposing counsel, is her only expertise field of study wise is young adult psychology?
Normally we address the court, not co-counsel, but you may respond to that for the purposes of the hearing, what the court considers an objection. Go ahead, counsel.
No, Your Honor. Dr. Alex Richards has earned a master's degree in psychology general. She has a PhD in young adult psychology. So she generally has expertise in psychology in general. She just has a doctorate in young adult psychology.
Again, any objection, Ms. Sims, based on that?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. The court qualifies her as an expert witness, and she may now answer. You want to repeat your question, Ms. Lang?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. And it's Miss Savannah. I apologize for the incorrect screen name.
Miss Savannah, thank you.
Over the course of your professional interactions with Milan, what did you discover concerning her family history?
Yes, well, as stated, I learned that Milan had an aunt, Tanya Maddox, who was a real role model for her, and that she witnessed her aunt's violent death by suicide a few years after this aunt graduated from Columbus University.
Thank you. I apologize. Continue.
I also stated that I believe Milan's fear of heights is rooted in her witnessing this violent episode, in my professional opinion at least.
What did you learn about Tanya Maddox's affiliation with the Gammas?
I learned that Tanya Maddox served as head of New Pledges, and also that she served as, in fact, president of Gammas for a time while she was at Columbus University. Milan strove to be as perfect as her aunt, and, in my professional opinion, this is one reason why Milan wanted to join Gamma so badly.
What else did you learn about Milan's childhood or past history?
I learned that Milan was teased by other kids for most of her life because of her weight and her supposed nerdiness. I also learned that Milan's parents really pressured her to perform well and be the best at everything. In general, I believe that Milan felt very insecure as a child. I also learned that Milan lost the weight she acquired as a child through unhealthy methods, such as self-starvation, regurgitation, and diet pills. In my professional opinion, she was the victim of an eating disorder, such as anorexia or bulimia. I also learned that Milan occasionally smoked marijuana and drank alcohol. Although she had not yet reached the point of addiction, I think it very likely that she was approaching that stage.
Thank you. What was the substance of your conversation with Milan when she visited your office during Hell Week?
Yes, well, Milan told me that Hell Week was really difficult for her. And she said, that though she would not elaborate, she would do everything it took to become a Gamma. She would do whatever they told her. I wanted her to tell me what the Gammas were doing to her. She started to speak, but whispered nothing. When I urged her to go to Dean Thomas and report whatever incidents were occurring, she stopped me and said that if I told the dean would end our counseling sessions. She also told me that the dean would not do anything against the Gammas anyway.
In your professional opinion, what effect did rushing Gamma have on Milan's mental health?
From my interactions with Milan, I believe that Gamma was very detrimental to her mental health. Rushing Gamma and participating in the pledging activities were quickly deteriorating her mental state and slowing her progress that she had worked hard to earn. In fact, I strongly advised her against participating in the Gamma's pledging activities from my personal experience with them.
Again, in your professional opinion, what effect could Milan's frequent consumption of alcohol have had on her individual tolerance level?
In my professional opinion, I am unsure of what Milan's individual tolerance level of alcohol would have been due to her frequent consumption of it. I am unsure what effect it would have had on her on the night of November 22nd, 1997.
again, in your professional opinion, why do you think that the acts of the Gammas were to be considered hazing?
Well, hazing is loosely classified as someone intending to have fun at someone else's expense on a more risky level. In my professional opinion—
Objection.
Brown?
This is out of, Your Honor, this is out of scope for this witness. They are an expert in young adult psychology and has no professional opinion on hazing.
Ms. Savannah?
Your Honor, the prosecution's witness also has a medical degree as stated prior.
Well, to the extent that it affects her underlying treatment of the patient in this case, the court will allow it at this particular stage and reserve ruling on it further. Go ahead, you may answer.
Thank you, Your Honor.
As I said, in my professional opinion, I believe that doing these dangerous tasks just to get into a fraternity would certainly count as hazing. Also, from my past experience with the Gammas, I believe that this only supports my professional opinion.
And finally, in your professional opinion, why do you think that Milan willingly went out on the ledge of the clock tower to hang the flag?
Yes, well, as a result of my sessions with Milan, I believe that her fear of heights was such that she would never have gone out on that height without being pressured or forced to do so.
Thank you. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any follow-up?
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Dr. Richards. My name is Cheyenne Sims, and today I'll be asking you a few questions on behalf of defense. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
You're not fond of fraternities nor sororities.
I have nothing against the individual members, but I hate their actions.
Because they're related to gangs to you.
Could you please repeat the question, ma'am? I cannot understand you.
Because they're related to gangs to you?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Would you mind clarifying your question, ma'am? Do you mean that the members of the fraternities and sororities are related to members of gangs, or what do you mean?
Fraternities and sororities are related to gangs to you.
Do you mean that in my mind there is a connection between fraternities and sororities and gangs?
Precisely, yes.
There is that connection, yes.
Yes, and gangs remind you, sadly, of your son, yes?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
I'll let her answer. Overruled.
Yes, absolutely, ma'am.
Who was shot by a gang?
By a gang member, yes.
Yes. And you were meeting with Milan Jackson before she even decided to pledge to Phi Gamma, yes?
Yes, that is correct.
And Milan had a difficult childhood?
That is absolutely correct.
And her parents thought that she was never good enough?
I do not know what her parents thought, but they certainly pressured her to be the best at everything. I do not know what that's like good enough.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes, Ms. Sims, go ahead.
As we said before, Milan Jackson confided this information to Dr. Alex Richards. And so when it comes to speculation, she's not speculating to anything because Milan Jackson told her this information one-on-one.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
I agree with the defense that that Milan Jackson confided in Dr. Alex Richards as her counselor, but there's no way for her to possibly know what Milan Jackson's parents could have thought or could have been thinking of her.
Yeah, the court will believe similarly unless she was told that by her patient, then the court will sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So you may re-ask it.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Richards, Milan Jackson confided in you that her parents were never satisfied with what she did, yes?
Her parents always kept pushing her,
Yes, and this led to the development of a perfectionist personality disorder, yes?
Well, I never classified it, but her personality certainly was perfectionistic in nature, if not in technical terms.
And with this mindset, it made her want to impress others, to see herself as great.
It certainly would have. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. You state yourself, Doctor, twice, that Milan Jackson, and I quote, really wanted to be accepted, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
You also state in your professional opinion, Doctor, that she lived her life to please and impress others. Is this correct?
Absolutely.
Milan Jackson had an issue with alcohol, yes?
Yes.
But it wasn't near the path of addiction.
No, it was near the point of addiction.
You state in your witness statement exactly that she was not on the brink of addiction. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor, that's not correct.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
If my co-counsel could bring up the witness statement of, I also ask that this be off the clock.
That's fine.
Yes. If my co-counsel can bring up Dr. Alex Richards' statement and then move to the last sentence of the second page, first paragraph, last sentence.
I just want to be clear, Your Honor. Is defense moving to impeach my witness?
Certainly seems like that. Ms. Sims?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that what you're attempting to do here?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Where's the, I'm still looking for the statement. Can you direct the
So
court, please?
it says right there, it starts with although, it's on the first paragraph, and it says, although she was not at the point of addiction.
She was most certainly approaching that stage.
Yet your witness just testified that she was not on the point of addiction.
But she was moving to say that she was on the verge of addiction.
Yes, counsel, I understand that, but your witness specifically stated that she was not on the brink of addiction.
She was approaching that stage.
She didn't say that.
Thank you, ladies. That's enough. Again, address your comments to the court, please. The court will, and what was your original question, Ms. Sims, that she was responding to?
I asked her, here, give me a second. I asked her, but Milan Jackson was not on the brink of addiction.
And doctor, what was your response?
I told her that that was incorrect, that I believed Milan Jackson was on the brink of addiction.
So I think the testimony is consistent with what was previously shared, so the court will overrule the objection. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Going back to what I said earlier, Milan Jackson craved approval, yes?
Absolutely.
This means she would go above and beyond to impress those around her?
Absolutely.
So you would agree that she would do anything to impress the Gammas?
Absolutely.
Like showing that she could get over a fear of hers?
Yes.
And Milan Jackson had a fear of heights?
Objection, Your Honor. Out of grounds. There's no possible way this witness could know if she was trying to get over her fear of heights to impress the Gammas.
Yes, the court would agree. Court will sustain it unless her patient disclosed that to her, Ms. Sims.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Doctor, we talked. May I proceed?
Yes, please.
Yes, Doctor, we talked briefly about Milan Jackson coping with alcohol. So she was a frequent drinker?
Yes, that is correct.
And it's reasonable, Doctor, that a frequent drinker would drink at the party on their own accord?
Yes, ma'am, if alcohol was available.
Yes. I would like to, Your Honor, may I approach the witness what has been previously marked as Exhibit 1?
Yes, that'll be interesting on how you're going to approach the witness, but go ahead.
May I just show it to the witness screen share?
That'd be fine. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just give my co-counsel a second.
Your Honor, I'd just like to be sure that this is on the clock.
It is. We're back on the clock after looking at that last document.
Thank you. Can you identify what this is?
Yes, ma'am. It is a blood alcohol level chart at the bottom.
Can you look at the female chart on the top that states females and the number of drinks?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Your Honor, is this a fair and accurate copy or document?
This is out of a manual or a publication, I take it, counsel?
Yes.
And you're asking the witness if she can testify as to whether it's a true and accurate copy. Do you know, doctor?
Yes, sir, Your Honor, I can attest that this is fair and accurate.
Very good, thank you.
I ask that Exhibit 1 be placed into evidence, Your Honor.
Any objection, Ms. Savannah?
No, Your Honor, there is no objection at this time.
Very good, it'll be so admitted.
You know that Milan Jackson was female, yes?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
She weighed 125 pounds.
Yes, ma'am, she did.
I want to direct your attention to the graph that says calculation, this graph here, where it says 3 drinks to 125 pounds. Can you read that number where both of those meet?
Yes, ma'am, that number is 0.12.
And you know that Milan Jackson had a blood alcohol level of 0.10.
When she died, yes, ma'am.
So her blood alcohol level was supposed to be a 0.12, yet it was a 0.10.
Yes, ma'am.
Which means that Milan Jackson must have built up a tolerance to alcohol.
Yes, ma'am. I would agree with you.
Now, I want you to read aloud as I read silently. I think it's up. If you scroll down, if you scroll down, co-counsel. Right there at the end of the chart, can you read silently as I read out loud? Tolerance may play a part in effects of alcohol in the above functions.
Tolerance may play a part in the effects of alcohol and the above functions.
And lastly, this is my last question for you. In your professional opinion, Dr. Richards, you do not know what effect the alcohol could have had on Milan Jackson the night she died. Is that correct?
I am uncertain of it. Yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Before I give the other side an opportunity again to ask any follow-up, I had an officer walk in. Let me check with him. Did you need me for something? Okay. All right. Thank you. Any follow-up, Ms. Savannah?
No, Your Honor, there is no follow-up at this time.
Very good. Thank you, doctor, for coming in and testifying from the office. You did a good job. Thank you very much. You're excused. Next witness.
Your Honor, may I call Tyler Johnson to the stand?
Very good. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir. Your Honor.
Ms. Johnson?
I am Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, did I previously swear you in or no?
Yes, Your Honor,
Okay.
you did.
All right. So please recall you're under oath, and Mr. Cito, you may proceed.
Please state your name for the court.
Yo, the name's Tyler Johnson.
What is your relationship with Miss Jackson?
Miss Jackson was one of my best friends, and she wanted to be my fellow fraternity member. We got so close that I started calling her Moo, and she started calling me Ty. I can't believe that she's dead.
And what is your affiliation with the Gamma fraternity at Columbus University?
Well, I served as head of New Gammas for a time. Now I serve as vice president of the Gammas.
Based on your observations, how would you describe Miss Jackson?
Man, how can I describe someone like that? Moo was beautiful, of course. She was really smart, it appeared to me, and she was super enthusiastic about joining Gamma.
What did the defendant tell you about the events of Hell Night he had planned for Miss Jackson before they occurred?
Chris told me that he had something special planned for Moo on Hell Night. The way he said it gave me the shivers, so I asked what he meant, but he just said, Hell Night will give Milan a permanent attitude change. Boy, I was scared for Moo after that. I tried to keep an eye on her whenever she and Chris were together.
How would you describe your first encounter with Miss Jackson?
I first met Miss Jackson during Rush Week. Like I said, Moo was beautiful, and I thought she was smart. I liked her right away. Chris told Moo, I remember, that if she really wanted to impress the Gammas, she could hang their flag from the top of the clock tower. Then he smiled. Man, I've known Chris for years, but that was such a creepy look. I couldn't believe that he would ask something like that of her, especially a person like Moo, whom I perceived to be just so cute and innocent.
Based on your interactions with Miss Jackson, how do you describe her behavior in regards to the members of Gamma?
Man, she was like kind of reserved, and I think some of our members thought she was snotty from what I heard them saying. But, it seemed to me like she was really kind and sweet. She was usually pretty quiet, and I think that may have contributed to some of my perceptions of their behavior. I believe some of them thought she was a little too snotty towards our senior members, especially, her being new and all, but I knew better. I knew her.
Based on what you saw, what was the defendant's behavior in regards to Miss Jackson's personality?
Well, from his interactions with me, I feel like Chris was just kind of annoyed and intimidated by Moo's personality. Here's this smart, gorgeous girl, but for once, and she told me this specifically, she's not interested in Gamma for anyone, and that would include Chris. Instead, she's just interested in Gamma for Gamma.
Who did the defendant try to set Miss Jackson up with at one point?
That would be Brian, Chris's friend. Man, it seemed to me like Chris was trying to pressure her into sleeping with Brian, from what I heard of Chris's words to her. It was like, if he could get Moo to do something like that, he would feel like he had a little more control over her, man?
And how did the defendant react when he was turned down by Miss Jackson?
Chris acted super annoyed. I was there, and seriously, man, Moo was acting like the independent woman she was. And I believe that Chris just couldn't stand the fact that he didn't have nothing against her.
Based on your observations, why was the defendant elected over you as Gamma president?
Well, in my opinion, I think Chris cheated me out of being the president. Based on my observations and my discussions with my fellow fraternity members, I believe he started a rumor that I drank too much, so he could be elected instead of me.
Based on your interactions, how would you describe Miss Jackson's drinking habits?
Well, we sometimes like to party at my place, drink 40s. I think we each drunk a 12-pack once or twice, and I think Moo passed out on those occasions. Yes, she did. Kind of unusual.
On November 17th, what happened to Pat Smith?
Well, Pat had an asthma attack that night. It was following a pledging activity that Chris and I had planned. We had all the pledges stripped down to their underwear. Kind of stupid looking back on it. But anyway, Chris let the matter get out of hand, and he had the male pledges the male Gamma start hitting the pledges with paddles. Some of them started crying, and I saw that they were really upset. Then they took the pledges outside. I could see that Pat was having trouble breathing, and she wanted to go back inside and get her inhaler, but the Gammas wouldn't let her. Then she passed out. She ended up going to the hospital, and Chris and a few other of the guys went to visit her the next day. I would have gone too, but I had a test.
What happened on November 22nd?
Well, that was Hell Night. And that's the last night of Hell Week. And that's when we have all the pledges complete their final pledging activities, It's kind of a special day.
And can you elaborate how this led up to Miss Jackson's death?
Certainly. Well, we lined all the pledges up in their fraternity house, and then we led them out one by one to, complete their task. We had one chew on an eggshell and told him it was glass. Oh, so funny. Well, when we brought Moo out, Chris whispered something in her ear, and I heard the words tower and flag. I should have done something right then, but I was in shock. Right after he finished speaking to her, Moo grabbed the flag out of Chris's hand and started running toward the campus center, where the clock tower was. Chris ran after her. It took me a minute to catch my breath. Otherwise, I would have been there right behind Moo. But as it was, Chris had about a 10-second head start. A couple of the other guys followed Chris. We all chased her towards the clock tower. Moo ran up, and Chris was the first one up after her. By the time we got to the top of the clock tower, Moo was already gone. She had fallen.
And remind us, Who is physically closest to Miss Jackson at the top of the clock tower right before her death?
Well, that would have to be Chris. Just like him, always chasing after my girl Moo. He was the first one to reach her once she reached the top of the clock tower. And by the time we got there, Moo was already gone.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. No further questioning, Your Honor.
Thank you. For the defense, who's doing the questioning here?
I am, Your Honor.
And who is I am?
Isabella Grijalva.
Hi, ma'am. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Johnson, you're the vice president of the Phi Gammas at Columbia University, correct?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
Only second to Chris Archer?
Yes, ma'am. He's the president.
And it's true that despite having been elected head of the new Gammas, Chris Archer was elected to be president of the Gammas.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can you restate that question? I had trouble understanding it.
Yes, of course. And it's true that despite you having been elected head of the new Gammas, Chris Archer was elected to be the president of the Gammas your senior year.
Yes, ma'am. That's 100% correct.
And you consider him to be a backstabber. Is that true?
Yes, I do.
You believe that the reason that you were not elected to be president of the Gammas was because others believed you had a drinking problem, correct?
May I be clear? I believe that Chris started a rumor, and that's the reason that others believed it, yes.
So redirecting you back to my question, you do believe that it was because others believed that you had a drinking problem?
As a secondary reason to what Chris told them, yes, ma'am, absolutely.
You do believe that Chris Archer started that rumor, correct?
That is my belief, ma'am.
So you'd agree with me that you have issues with Chris Archer?
I'd agree that I do have a bit of a personal issue with him, yes.
And it's also true that if Chris Archer is convicted of this crime, you will be promoted as president of the Gammas, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Thank you. Let's move on. You enjoy consuming alcohol, right?
Excuse me, ma'am, I had a little trouble hearing you.
You enjoy consuming alcohol, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and even if I didn't enjoy it, you know, I think I might be having a bit of an addiction problem.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevancy.
This is the, may I respond?
Yeah.
This is to lay the foundation of Tyler Johnson's relationship with Milan.
How does it, may I respond, Your Honor?
And how is that relevant, ma'am?
Because they often would spend time together drinking. That is one of the main things that they bonded over.
I'll go ahead and allow it. Objection overruled.
It's true that you were close to Milan, correct?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And that you would often have long conversations with her while drinking.
Yes.
It's true that her personality changed when intoxicated.
Yes.
And she went from someone who was more reserved to someone who was more expressive and outgoing.
Yes, depending on the amount of alcohol, yes.
You were aware that Milan believed that she had reputational issues with the Gammas?
I was aware that she had reputational issues with the Gammas?
That she believed that she had reputational issues with the Gammas?
Yes, ma'am, she believed that.
And you encouraged her to do something spectacular to remedy that?
Yes, I did.
You'd agree with me that you considered her to be too obsessed with the fraternity and succeeding in it, correct?
I thought it was a little crazy, but I could relate to some degree.
But that's a yes to my question?
Yes, but only by a little.
I'd like to talk to you now a little bit about the night of November 22nd. Milan ran to the clock tower with a flag, correct?
Yes, ma'am, she did.
And you ran after her with Chris Archer?
I ran after her behind Chris Archer.
And it's true that due to the late hour, it was quite dark.
It was dark, but the campus area was well lit by the lamps and by the light of the clock tower.
But your vision was still somewhat hindered by the darkness.
Wasn't as good as it would have been in daylight.
So that's a yes?
Yes.
Yes. Is it true that by the time you reached the clock tower, Milan Jackson had already fallen?
Yes, ma'am.
And you'd agree with me that when you did reach the top, you weren't able to see what had clearly happened.
Well, ma'am, by the time I reached the top, it had already happened, so I did not see it happen. I did not see her fall.
Finally, I just want to clarify. You say that you know for certain that Chris Archer pushed her off the tower, but you didn't actually see that happen.
Ma'am, I believe I did say that I am sure Chris Archer pushed her off the tower, but no, I did not see him push her off the tower with my own eyes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cito. Any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir, ma'am. You may step down. Any further witnesses, Mr. Cito?
No, Your Honor.
State res?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. And for the defense, your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Dean Jesse Thomas to the stand.
Dean Thomas, please turn your camera on so we can see you.
Good afternoon. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Good afternoon. Can you please state your name, pronouns, and title to the court?
Yes. My name is Jesse Thomas. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm currently the dean at Columbus University, and I've been in this position for about 8 years now.
How would you describe Columbus University?
Well, great school. You know, we have a great community for students. We provide a lot of support for those struggling on our campus, and just great staff and high achieving students. Also, right in our Columbus green.
Thank you. What are some of your responsibilities as dean?
Well, I take it as my personal responsibility to ensure that all the students get the most out of their university experience. You know, just try to stay engaged with my students. And Greek life is a key pillar of our institution. And recently, we've had a lot more community outreach with the help of my friend Chris Archer. So, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about like the Phi Gamma fraternity?
Yeah, sure. They are really well known on our campus. They're a great organization, and they have, you know, very high achieving individuals. They do a lot of volunteer. They help me personally. They're pretty nice.
Excellent. Can you tell us a little bit? About your experience with Chris Archer?
Yeah. I'm happy to say I know him personally. He's been a great friend to me over the past couple of years. He's helped me, you know, with conferences and fighting against hazing and underage alcohol consumption. So yeah, he's helped me a lot.
I'm sorry, can you tell us a little bit about the efforts you've made to reduce hazing on your campus?
Yeah. I think it's really important that I uphold the former dean's agenda. So I do a lot to, you know, enforce very strict rules against, you know, hazing and drinking underage. As I said, I worked in this position for about 8 years now, and I'm really, I've had a lot of conferences, and I've even become like a guest speaker at other schools, and I've won awards for my duties.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about the actions that you've taken to limit underage drinking?
Yes. Well, we have signs, posters plastered all around our campus, and we have a lot of programs for the students to go through that will teach them the consequences and the effects of drinking underage. And I'm sure to, you know, speak to the students one-on-one about it.
Thank you. Now, can you talk a little bit more about the, you said that you've done some more community outreach with Chris Archer. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, we've had fundraisers, rallies, you know, just really spreading information about the effects of hazing, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. Let's get back to the fraternity that you mentioned, the Phi Gammas. Have you had any incidents involving hazing recently?
There was one incident with a pledge to Phi Gamma named Pat Smith, but she had retracted her statement.
Why did she come to you?
Well, she had just come from the hospital, I believe, and pretty much just described an incident where she had suffered from an asthma attack and came to just report that to me.
Thank you. And what was your response to this?
I mean, of course, I was very concerned and also confused because, you know, I just didn't believe the Phi Gammas would do something like that. But, you know, I take things like this very, very seriously. And so I, based on, you know, by law and my own ethical responsibilities, I called the police and reported it.
And after you had called the police, what did you learn?
that Pat Smith had actually taken back what she had initially told me.
Were you familiar at all with the late Milan Jackson?
Not too much, but a little bit, yes.
Can you explain your experiences with her?
Yeah, Milan had came to me, I believe it was the Thursday night before her death, and just kind of talked about how she had something very important to tell me, but unfortunately we never got around to having that conversation.
How did you react to her death?
Oh, I mean, I was devastated, of course. I mean, we all were. Like, it's very heartbreaking to me. I would like the students would know that I'm there for them, and the fact that I wasn't, there for her is very sad to me. But I'm already trying to allocate some funds to put in a bench in the campus center or a plaque as our parents' wishes, and I understand the effects this may have on the student body, so I've already hired about 100 grief counselors for them.
Did anybody come forward with evidence of foul play?
I was under the impression that the consensus was that this was an accident. No one had personally came to me or any other campus official to report something like that. I mean, I was not there the night, and I don't really know. I didn't see what happened, but I do feel in my heart that Chris wouldn't do something like that. Like, this theory just really doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Mr. Cito?
Your Honor, I will be redirecting this witness. I do have a follow-up.
Very good. Please proceed.
Sorry, cross-examining this witness.
Cross-exam, that's correct. Go ahead.
As a dean, it is your responsibility to not only oversee faculty and staff, but the students as well, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree with me that most of the money generated to further fund Columbia University are generous donations from Gamma alumni?
Yes, a lot of it.
You sent a letter to the defendant Chris Archer during Rush Week, reminding the president of the Gammas of the school's strict no hazing policy, correct?
Like I do to all fraternities, yes.
Is it true that you added an additional note specifically to Chris at the end of the memo?
If you look at the memo, the date on that is 1998, a year after this death had taken place.
I believe that would be a typo, Your Honor.
Very good. You can argue that and make a closing based on whatever evidence you bring in. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the defendant was fully aware of the school's rules, correct?
Yes, like I had said, they helped me supporting that.
It is also true that in the past, you have had to discipline the Gammas for breaking the school's strict no hazing policy, correct?
A little while ago, yes.
So my answer is yes, okay. Is it true that the students at Columbus University have a history of playing pranks on the other students that result in injury?
Well, I can't control pranks they do that hurt people, but I believe so.
So the answer to my question is yes.
I don't really have the knowledge to fully answer that question.
So the answer to my question is yes.
Maybe, yeah.
So the answer to my question is yes.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. The prosecution is badgering my witness.
Well, she asked her a yes or no question, and she was trying to get her to commit one way. She finally has, so she's answered. Objection overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Please.
Is it true that the students at during these pranks, people have been hurt, correct?
I believe so.
And you have had to discipline fraternities for physical abuse of the other students, correct?
Correct. Sometimes.
Is it true that when Pat Smith came to report the hazing incidents, you said things like this are to be expected during pledging?
Objection, hearsay. That is an out-of-court. May I be heard?
What's your response?
Incorrect. This is not an out-of-court. Well, it is an out-of-court statement, but if we refer to the deposition, this is a statement made by the dean.
May I respond?
Go ahead.
It is still an out-of-court statement used to assert the truth of the matter.
So the dean testified, so I'm going to allow it. You may answer.
What was the question?
Is it true that when Pat Smith came to report the hazing incidents, you said things like this are, and I quote, to be expected during pledging?
Correct.
Is it true that when Pat Smith was sent to the hospital as a result of an asthma attack she had during a pledging activity from the Gammas that involved paddling, you assured her that it was, and I quote, all in good fun?
Yes.
And you've received other complaints about the Gammas in the past, correct?
Yes, but no reports.
Would you agree with me that despite some of the past complaints made against the Gammas being recanted, some of the allegations that have been made in the past have some truth to them?
Yes, maybe.
So the answer to my question is yes?
Yes.
Objection.
Go ahead.
This question called for speculation, and I would like to have my witnesses, the last part of my witness's testimony stricken from the record.
May I respond?
No, she didn't indicate that. She answered as if it was her own knowledge, so the court will overrule the objection. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Milan came to your office the Thursday before her death and said she had something to tell you about the situation between Pat Smith and the Gammas, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Very good. In the interest of timeliness, we are running short on time. I'm going to ask defense to move on to the next witness. Thank you for testifying. Good job. Your next witness.
The defense would like to call Dr. Jordan Mitchell to the stand.
Dr. Mitchell, please join us.
May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Can you please state your name and title to the court?
Yes, my name is Dr. Jordan Mitchell, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a local historian here in New Columbia.
Can you please tell us a little bit about your work as a historian?
Well, for 25 years, I've been studying the history of 4 colleges and universities in New Columbia, and I've always had a passion for history of universities, and this is why I decided to write about it. My entire family has been historians, so you can imagine how important it is to me.
Objection, Your Honor.
Grounds?
Narration.
Overruled. Mr. Cito, if you're not participating, can you mute your, you are muted. Anybody, I'm getting some background chatter and it's hard to hear Ms. Scott or the doctor testify, so please mute yourselves if you're not directly participating. Thank you. Please proceed.
Can you please state your education and your credentials?
Yes, I graduated from Stephen Biko University in 1971 with a PhD in American history. And on top of studying the Greek life for a century, I have written 13 articles and 2 very successful books of Greek life.
Excellent. Your Honor, at this time, I ask that Dr. Jordan Mitchell is admitted as an expert in the fields of the history of Greek life, specifically at Columbus University.
Any objection? Hearing none, that'll be so omitted.
Thank you. In your research, were there any fraternities or sororities that ever stood out to you?
Well, it started when I wrote my book called The History of Columbus University from Students to Socials. And this book is about the life of CU students and its founding from 1895. My book is about CU is a bestseller currently.
And in your research for that book, did you ever look specifically at any fraternities or sororities?
Well, I looked at the sorority Phi Gamma. It stood out the most to me, and the progression of that sorority has been very established over the years and safe.
Excellent. Were they in what ways have they changed throughout that progression?
Well, they've changed. Over the last over the last decade, they haven't had any high reports of hazing reported.
Excellent. What is that? What is the statistic for the recent status of hazing at Phi Gamma?
The recent status, is that what you asked, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. The Phi Gammas I've noticed that the Phi Gammas are one of the most prestigious and well-respected fraternities in the nation. And there has only been 5 reported incidents of hazing with the Phi Gammas nationally, and that is an incredible record.
How does that stack up to other fraternities or sororities nationwide?
In most sororities and fraternities, the reported incidents that happen per year is around 50 to 60. So they specifically hold a golden standard across the country.
Thank you. Now I want to bring us to today. Dr. Jordan Mitchell, are you working on anything currently?
Yes, actually. Currently, I'm working on a book which I will be receiving a very large advancement and a 5% profit covering this case. And I will be donating the profits to anti-hazing organizations, which I actually heard about from Chris Archer himself.
You mentioned Chris Archer. Can you tell us a little bit more about your encounters with him?
Yes. So you see, I attempted to interview him for my new book that I'm writing of the unfortunate event that happened on November 22nd.
What was he like?
He is very kind and cooperative, and when I was talking to him, and he seemed very passionate about social issues. Although he couldn't give me information about the trial at this time, he would be happy to meet with me once this ordeal was over.
Did you meet anyone else from Columbus University to discuss the events of November 22nd?
Yes, I actually met Pat Smith, and she was happy to give me an interview regarding the information of this case, and we actually made a deal. The deal was that if she gave me an interview, I would pay her $1,000. And I will note that she would only grant this interview if I paid her the $1,000.
You mentioned you're writing a book about the incident on November 22nd. Is there anything in particular that stood out to you as you researched?
Well, while I was doing my research, I made a very surprising discovery that Milan's aunt was similar. Milan's death was similar to her paternal aunt, Tanya Maddox.
What happened with Miss Maddox?
Yes, well, I found out 2 years after Miss Maddox graduated, she died from suicide by jumping off the ledge of her building.
And how does that relate to Milan Jackson?
Well, every great historian from here to LA knows the sad story of Tanya, and that the sole witness of this event was her 12-year-old niece, Milan Jackson, and that she was the sole witness during this event.
Now, what does that mean to you?
Now, I'm absolutely no expert on psychology, but I feel like that would really mess with a person, especially a kid. And
Objection.
Grounds.
Out of bounds. This is not her area of expertise.
Can I respond?
No, in the interest of time, I'm going to sustain the objection. Is there anything else you needed out of this witness? We're running short on time, and I would like to hear from the defendant themselves.
No, Your Honor. No more questions.
Thank you. Cross-exam?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll keep it short to respect time.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is it true that you'll receive an advance and a profit from the sale of the book you're planning to write about this incident?
Yes, but like I said, I will be donating.
No, the answer to my question is yes or no.
Yes.
Would you agree that many of the wealthy and political citizens of this country are Gamma alumni?
Yes.
In the past, the Gammas were infamous for their dangerous hazing activities, correct?
Yes, but that was in the past.
So is the answer to my question yes?
Yes.
Is it true that a portion of the unexplained injuries and deaths that occurred on campus took place during pledging week?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that if someone had testified then, the problem could have been solved?
Yeah, that'll be sustained as speculative.
Okay, yes, thank you, Your Honor. Is it true that majority of the victims were pledging to the Gamma fraternity?
Yes.
Yes. Would you agree with me that in the past, fraternities have been secretive about what's going on in order to avoid punishment?
I am not an expertise in that, so I would not know, but...
In your sworn deposition, this is a statement you made. So, again, the answer to my question is yes or no?
Yes.
You'd agree with me that the Gamma fraternity had a long-standing hazing tradition called raising the flag that resulted in a total of 5 deaths, yes?
it was actually 4 injuries and 5 deaths, or 4 injuries and 1 death.
Okay, and thank you. In your book, you've documented multiple instances of students recanting their reports of hazing out of fear for repercussions. Yes?
Yes.
Sorry, Raymond.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, Doctor. You may step down. Next witness, 230 or 235? 230.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Chris Archer to the stand.
Is it an ROR, do you know, or is it argument?
Mr. Shumway.
Mr. Archer.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Then we don't need to go on record, do we?
I don't think so. I'm going to tell the line just to do.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Could you please state your name to the court and then introduce
And let
yourself?
the jail know.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Chris Archer. I'm president of the Phi Gamma fraternity. I'm involved in a lot of community building right around Columbus University.
And can you explain to us how you came to meet Milan Jackson?
Yeah, we met during, it would have been rush week of about 1997. She was bright, enthusiastic, but very ambitious. Probably a little too much, honestly.
And what was your response to Milan's confidence?
Honestly, I didn't have too much of a problem with it. It was concerning seeing as how we didn't even start making any sort of decision on who would get to be a pledge yet. She was so enthusiastic that, it was just very concerning to see how, involved she wanted to be before we had made any sort of decision.
And was there anybody with Milan Jackson when you met her?
Yeah, this would also have been around the time when I had met her friend, Pat Smith.
And what was your impressions of Pat Smith?
Unlike Milan, who is, very confident, very outspoken, Pat Smith was, unfortunately, I don't like to say this, but she didn't seem much like the Gamma type. No offense to her, but she was, more of a follower rather than a leader. She wouldn't, speak much unless spoken to. Because of how polar opposites they looked, I asked, Milan how they had met. Turns out they were, friends since about grade school, something like that. But, turns out she said, she wouldn't even give up being a Gamma for Pat, which left a bad taste in my mouth.
What happened after Milan became a pledge?
Milan became an interesting conversation topic around Gamma, to say the least. Her personality was all over the place. She would be either rude and snotty towards lower member Gammas, but then she would be perfectly outstanding near people like me or Tyler. I don't like this phrase, but she seemed like a teacher's pet.
How did this make you feel about Milan?
For me, it was a little concerning, but I didn't think that I had any room to judge. Most of the senior member Gammas definitely began to dislike her at some point, but I did try to remedy the situation every once in a while.
Yes, and you mentioned Tyler. Who are you referring to?
That would be Tyler Johnson, president of Gammas. We used to be really good friends, and I'd still personally take a bullet for that guy, but not so much anymore. I don't think it goes both ways.
Would you ever consider having Phi Gamma engage in hazing?
Oh, dear God, no. For the past, couple of decades now, Phi Gamma presidents have worked very closely with the dean in making sure that hazing is not an activity that goes on in our fraternity or in any other, for that matter. I publicly hold rallies, speaking attention to it on campus.
What did you have the pledges do the year that? What did you have Milan? What did you have the pledges do the year Milan Jackson was a pledge?
Yeah. So the majority of tests and activities are usually a thing they're sort of thought as a team building exercise.
Mr. Archer, I'm going to cut you off there. The only thing that's relevant at this point, and we are pressed for time, or anything that directly involves this particular person who died. So please limit your questions and answers to that.
Yes.
You have 1 minute, counsel.
Okay. What occurred during Milan's final test?
Well, we had intended for her to simply, hang a flag outside the door of our fraternity house. But what happened once I told her, the phrase "raise the flag," she, snatched off her blindfold, snatched the flag that we had out of our hands, and ran towards the clock tower.
What happened next?
I was right behind her. The other gammas were also chasing us. We sprinted up, towards the clock tower, and by the time, Milan was at the ledge, it was just her and I. She was, crying, trying to say how good of a gamma she wanted to be, how proud she wanted us to be of her. But, as soon as I reached my hand out, she slipped, and here we are.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you. Cross-exam?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes, please.
You are in charge of planning the pledging activities for Phi Gamma, correct?
That's correct.
4 days before Milan's death, you received a memo from Dean Jesse Thomas that specifically reminded you to not participate in any criminal hazing activities for Phi Gamma, correct?
That is correct. We work very closely together.
When you first met Miss Jackson, did you jokingly tell her, well, if you really want to impress us, you will do something so great the campus administration will hang the Gamma flag from the top of the clock tower?
Yeah, I thought it would be a good joke to, break the ice.
So the answer is yes?
Yeah.
Thank you. Did you try to set up Miss Jackson with your friend Brian at one point?
Yeah, she had recently broken up with someone. I don't remember who the guy's name was, but I thought, they might make a good couple, and it would, help improve Milan's mood.
To clarify, please answer yes or no.
Yes, I did.
Is it true that you stated the pledging activities that you planned would not result in any physical injury to the people participating?
100%, absolutely.
And is it true that you said the members of Gamma, including yourself, never touched the pledges?
Absolutely.
Is it true that you put a hand on Milan's shoulder before she fell to her death?
I tried to reach out to her, but I can't remember if my hand actually touched her or not, but I don't believe it did.
Please try to recall your sworn deposition while I redirect the question. Is it true that you put a hand on Milan's shoulder before she fell to her death?
I don't believe that I did, but if you could read the deposition for me, then I'll be able to more clearly remember.
Your Honor, may I ask the co-counsel to pull up the Chris Archer's sworn deposition?
I'm sorry, but we're out of time. We're already over our time limit. So the court will take it as entered into the court record that, in fact, in his deposition, he did say that he placed his hand on her shoulder.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is it true that you said Milan went out on the ledge of the clock tower without any prodding from you?
That is correct.
You were the closest person to Milan Jackson when she was at the ledge of the clock tower, correct?
That is correct. Everyone else is too far away.
And to clarify, it's true that you made physical contact with Miss Jackson just before she fell to her death?
If that's what I said in my statement, then yes.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Archer, for your testimony. You may step down. I'll take closings, but I've seen enough in order to send to the jury. So you'll have a minute and a half for closing. Who's doing Mr. Cito? For the state, you can go first.
It would be Helena Savannah.
Or Ms. Savannah, you can do. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honors, opposing counsel, member of the jury, may it please the court. At the beginning of today's trial, we made you all a promise that we would prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Chris Archer, murdered Milan Jackson because he was intimidated and could not handle rejection. Today, we have proved to you through evidence and witness testimony that Chris Archer committed murder in the first degree and criminal hazing, and this is why you should rule in favor of the prosecution. Milan Jackson was a bright girl with so much potential. Unfortunately, success is not without drawbacks, leading Milan Jackson to become overly insecure and willing to do anything to be accepted by her peers. History always has an effect on present day occurrences, and in this case, the toxic histories of the Gammas led up to the death of Milan Jackson. If he couldn't have her, no one could. As a woman, we all know what it's like to not have our boundaries respected by men. It's an often contingency. And Chris Archer preyed on Milan's vulnerability and pushed Milan Jackson off the clock tower, which ultimately led to her untimely demise. When Milan Jackson got involved with the Gammas, her mental health declined drastically, and her progress was put to a halt. We heard testimony from Chris Archer himself, who testified that he believed Milan was snotty and stuck up. And Dean Jesse Thomas testified to the fact that Chris Archer was fully aware of the school's rules, but there had still been times where the Gammas were not in compliance with the rules. Finally, Dr. Jordan Mitchell shared testimony that the Gammas were infamous for their dangerous hazing activities, such as raising the flag, and now someone has to be held accountable. In Nichols v. New Columbia, Deborah Nichols, president of the Alpha Delta Alpha sorority, was convicted of criminal hazing. Tamara Wilcox was required as a pledge to engage in a drinking competition and told them to continue to drink despite apparent signs of intoxication. In this case, there is no doubt that Chris Archer intended to send Milan Jackson to her ill-fated demise, and we, the prosecution, respectfully ask the jury that you find Chris Archer guilty of murder in the first degree and criminal hazing. If he couldn't have her, no one could. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, and good job keeping within time. For the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Her demons led to her demise. Today, the burden of proof fell on the prosecution. In order to prove first-degree murder, they had to show the deliberate and premeditated killing of a human being, beyond all reasonable doubt, the highest bar for proof in the American legal system. But they have failed to do so, because the act or forethought simply was not there. In order to prove criminal hazing, the prosecution had to show to you that the serious injury or death was to result from the direct influence of the Phi Gammas. But no serious injury would have occurred had Milan listened and followed the task that was asked of her to raise the flag on the door. She may have been tipsy, but her blood alcohol levels were not high enough to completely impair her judgment. They would have had to be a 0.14 and hers were a 0.10. The prosecution brought before you a jealous ex-friend who has everything to gain from Chris's demise, an unreliable person who lied to the police, and a doctor who hates fraternities and sororities and has only been able to unbiasedly tell you that Milan was struggling and desperate to belong. All the defense had to do was shed a reasonable doubt on any of those elements, and we have done so. Dean Thomas came to you and told you of Chris Archer's taste towards hazing. You heard today from Dr. Jordan Mitchell, who praised the Phi Gammas for their safety, and finally you heard from Chris Archer himself, the only person who actually knows what happened and has told you under sworn oath that he didn't push her off of the tower. The prosecution could not meet their burden of proof today, and they could not prove that Chris Archer, beyond a reasonable doubt, killed Milan, because it simply didn't happen. It wasn't Chris Archer, but Milan's own demons that led to her demise. Members of the jury, I respectfully ask that you find Chris Archer not guilty on the charges of first-degree murder and criminal hazing. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And you also were pretty much within time as well. So as far as everybody, I don't want to take too much time, but let me critique you first by saying that everybody did an excellent job. One of the things that makes this enjoyable is that everybody is always well prepared, and you've been no exception. This is about the fourth time I've heard this fact pattern, and I think you all, both sides and all the witnesses, did an outstanding job, so good for you all. A couple of things that I'll just point out. Don't forget to introduce your witnesses by first having identified their names. Usually sometimes we take it for granted that the court knows who is testifying. I can tell you the first time I did this, I was a little lost because attorneys sometimes didn't identify, asked their witnesses to do the simple thing of stating their name, but everybody got that, I think. One of the things that I appreciate from doing a lot of video hearings now is that everybody gets points for dressing appropriately. We take that for granted when we get on video, but believe it or not, sometimes I have attorneys, but more likely it's the parties who don't dress appropriately, that just because they're appearing by video, they think they get a pass on court attire. you don't. And Mr. Cito, you did a good job making yourself a plain background there. I thought that was appropriate because sometimes we don't even get that. Everybody's background was good. I can tell you that the court does not appreciate when we see palm trees and ocean behind them as the background drop, because quite frankly, it makes me jealous. And it's not very professional when you see that. So everybody did an excellent job. I didn't even have to coach you on that. So that's all good. Good video etiquette. The other thing is that both sides had people helping them with documents and putting them on. That's actually a first. That's an excellent job. You have to be tech savvy and be able to have that at your fingertips. Both sides did a great job with that. The young lady who played the doctor, the first doctor, where are my notes? Dr. Richards. First of all, I thought that was Greta Thunberg when I first saw her, and I really had to do a double take. I really couldn't understand if this was a prank or not, but she did an excellent job as the doctor. All the witnesses did great, but she stood out. I really tried to pick out whether that was her accent or not. I could not tell. So when she came back as Tyler, I was like, holy cow. She needs to be if she goes to law school, she needs to do a minor in theater too, because she did an excellent job with that. And I think Chris Archer also ought to consider that because he did an excellent job as that witness too. Very believable. He was an excellent witness, even though he only had limited time. All the attorneys did a great job, I thought. All the attorneys who did cross-examination did an exceptional job. Usually for direct, it's pretty laid out as to what points you want to hit. And one of the fun parts of being an attorney, in my opinion, is the cross-examination side, because that's where you get to do, you have to flow a little bit, and you have to be more breaking of the mold as far as being able to be fast on your feet in order to do cross-examination. I thought everybody did a good job of redirecting their answers, especially when it called for a yes or no answer. It's very regular to have witnesses to try to shy their statements or try to give you the statement that they want to give. All you folks did a great job pointing them back to, hey, it's a yes or no question, answer it yes or no. So I thought you all did a good job there. Just as an aside, when judges give you an answer to objections, whether sustained or overruled, they don't always give you reasons. I know it's helpful to have reasons, but a lot of the time, if we think it's black and white, we might not give you one. But I thought everybody did a good job here with the objections. I thought a handful of them could have gone either way. So it's not win or lose with those. You got to make your objection to preserve the record. You all did a great job and gave great reasons. So that was all well done. Mr. Cito, I thought you did really well from the state's standpoint. You could be a prosecutor tomorrow. I don't have any doubt. You covered all the points and all the elements which you need to be hit. And Ms. Savannah did a good job, I thought, obviously, and Ms. Sims did a good job. And Isabella, I can't pronounce your last name, but you did a good job too. I thought you all did an excellent job from your respective sides. So good for you. I thought all the witnesses did a great job. And I laughed. I tried to hide my laugh when the doctor for the defense testified she's getting 5% from the book proceeds. I thought that was great. Now, what an opportunity to jump on that for cross-examination. But, you know, she's honest, and that's the way it's written. So everybody was very enjoyable. I can tell you all worked really hard with it. Again, it's good to redirect to get back to the question showing your bias. Yeah, that was an answer. That was a yes to my question. I thought you did really well with that. So well done, everybody. I know you have a short time to plan this out and to do the parts. And I was impressed that one of your witnesses covered 2 parts. So good job. I'm glad you came and participated in this. Hopefully you learned something along the way. I think you all have talent enough to go forward. I hope you consider moving onward to law school when you get a chance to do that, because if you're here at this stage doing it, I anticipate you all have a love of the law and want to proceed that way. So good for all of you. Thanks for participating. And I want to tell you as an aside, this is unfortunately a fact pattern that raises its head all too often, although we're dealing with it in a hypothetical here. We did have unfortunately a death here relating to this exact same hazing situation, and the gentleman's name is Colin Wyant, W-I-A-N-T, if you want to follow that and look that up and Google it, because there were a bunch of people who pled guilty to hazing under similar circumstances. So it's just not an embellished hypothetical. Unfortunately, stuff like this happens in the real world, so be cautious out there as you move forward. Quite frankly, the Greek system is supposed to be a system where people are protecting each other and not putting each other in harm's way. But certainly, if you see something like that happening in the future, I hope anybody situated with like that would step in and prevent somebody from experiencing a tragedy like this. But again, everybody, excellent job. Larry, do you have anything to say or add?
I just want to add that the virtual jury is back with their verdict, and we have a prosecution guilty verdict on both counts.
Man, we don't appreciate celebrating like that in the courtroom. You're supposed to maintain your decorum. And,
thank you so much for your time and your feedback.
You're welcome. The court frowns upon high fives in the courtroom, just so you know. And because everybody did a good job, win or lose. And don't forget, from the state's perspective, there's always the appeal process, which is not as glamorous. So, but good job, everybody. Anything else, Larry, before I cut free?
Thank you for your time, Judge.
All right, folks, take care. Thanks for having me. Where's the hang up button? Oh, there it is.
Judge Saunders, I believe I saw you earlier. Yes, there you are, sir.
I am here. Themselves, although I hope it's in a professional manner. I still want them to have, so we can have those frank discussions like I've had today. So I rarely wear it. I only wear it when it's a very, very, very big hearing, or if it's a probate matter such as a marriage or a name change or an adoption. I'll wear it. I don't want to be known as the black robe guy.
Again, totally fine. It's you're the judge, and it's your courtroom.
Well, I appreciate that.
Students, just so you know, Judge Saunders does periodically, he will judge the scrimmages for the college mock trial team frequently, and always provides excellent feedback to us. We always appreciate his contributions to that.